Hey, so I wanted to come in and talk to you about this book, Saltwater, by Jessica Andrews. But first of all, I'm reading these books at the moment. Finished Chamber of Secrets, which, I'm rereading these, but I love them. And really enjoying this. And I kind of feel like writing a Harry Potter fan fiction set afterwards. Because these books are set in the 90s, so I might write one about like 2020, but in Harry Potter world. That sounds fun to write. Anyway, I'm also reading this, Black Car Burning by Helen Mort. Enjoying this so far. And I'm also reading Kingdom Land by Rachel Allen. This is the first time I've ever read anything of hers, but so far I'm only 13 pages in, but I'm really, really liking it. Okay. I've also just finished baking a cake, which is lemon and poppy seed. And I use what the Italians call a ciambella. So it's kind of like a massive donut, but it's not a donut, it's a cake. But it looks very dainty and it's very, very nice. And I've also got tea in my Darth Maul mug that I got for my dad for Father's Day. Was it Father's Day? Or it was Christmas, like a few years ago, but he never used it, even though he likes Darth Maul. He never used it, I guess because it's so big, but I love it, so I stole it back. But anyway, I'm here to talk about this book. So, first of all, the cover. So this cover, I guess, is kind of like Instagram worthy. But to me, I think this is a lazy kind of cover. Like, to me, especially after reading the book, it doesn't really tell me anything except, maybe like a city girl scene. But to me, it doesn't really emote much or evoke much. To me, this cover seems like, I don't know, like when you apply to university and you get accepted and then they send you your welcome pack and then they send you like a welcome pack that says, oh, look at this in the city, look at that in the city. And I think this looks like one of the pictures that would be in that little welcome pack. So to me, the cover isn't, I'm not in love with it, but it's fine. But the cover is only the cover, so that's not that big a deal. Also, the title Saltwater, I like the title. That's a cool title, I think. And this book is about Lucy, and she's a young writer, I guess. And she is from Sunderland, and then she grows up with a single mum. Does she have a younger sister? I think in it she has a younger sister. And then when she's 18, she goes off to uni, and the book mainly focuses on, it's her when she's 25, so she's finished uni, and her father comes from Ireland, so she basically ends up inheriting this house. So the book starts with her going to this house in Ireland that she's inherited, and she's kind of discovering this house. But the novel isn't set chronologically. It just goes forward and back and side to side through her life up to the point of her being in this new house in Ireland. And the structure is in really short chapters. So if you look, chapter 1 and then chapter 2, so they're kind of like little snapshots. But for me, the structure was the most interesting thing about this book. It kind of gives her the freedom to be more expansive. Jessica Andrews, it gives her the freedom to be more expansive when she's, talking about a particular memory or a particular scene or, a point of climax. It gives her the flexibility to do, longer vignettes, I guess you could call them, and then really short pieces for like interesting bits of writing. So there are parts where the writing is really, really interesting and lyrical, I suppose. Like the book opens with a particularly like lyrical opening with a prologue, and it says, "It begins with our bodies, skin on skin. My body bursts from yours, safe together in the violet dark, and yet already there are spaces beginning to open between us. I am wet and glistening like a beetroot pulsing in soil." So obviously that's really, really beautiful. And because the book mainly charters her relationship with her mother, which it isn't a particularly fraught relationship, so on the surface you wouldn't think it's that interesting, but it is interesting in the way she portrays it with these short scenes. A relationship that you might think is ordinary seems really special, and even though it's a good relationship, the tensions that are there are explored very well. And with parts of the writing that were more lyrical like that, it really gives Jessica Andrews the opportunity in this debut to just show off the writing. So in her debut, with her being a new voice, you might think that, she has to be careful with the way she uses words, and it is careful, but it's also luxurious in the way it uses words. So I really liked that. I thought that was, bold and fun. And like the opening where she's kind of describing, I guess, or like the narrator's imagining herself as like an embryo at the start, which, I mean, you might think that's a bit much, but because it's the opening scene to the book, like the first image you get, it's really sensual, and it's kind of like the gestation of the novel, like the fertilization of the novel, because it is the beginning of the novel. So I thought that was playful. So the novel basically chronicles her growing up. So it's a Bildungsroman, a growing up novel. And she's working class. So loads of the details she has are just like really specific details that the narrator remembers. Like there's one bit where she remembers like pirate shampoo from Savers, just stuff like that. And all those images, I was like, these are so amazing. Like, how do you manage to recall this much? And just all those kind of details I was living. It seemed really nostalgic, but because the novel shifts so quickly, the nostalgia is never sentimental. It's always, I don't know. It's like when you go back, when you're at uni and then you go back to your like bedroom, and if it's like a childhood bedroom, there's like old toys in boxes, and you look at them like they're not antiques, they're not really special things, and they're not things you use anymore. And it's kind of just like the book is like burying these things that you don't need anymore, or deciding what to keep and what to throw away. So I really like that. And when she goes off to uni, she's like the only one of her friends to go off to uni. So she's in this new place. She goes down to London, so it's this big city. And then, it's kind of like her discovering herself at uni, but she doesn't know anyone. And then when she goes back home, when the semester ends, they kind of act like they don't know her anymore, or she's not sure if she knows them anymore because she's changed, or they've changed, or they've not changed. So it's all these like little frictions. And I actually came away from the book feeling really, really jealous because, I mean, there's a bit where, like, her first semester at uni, and so there's a real sense of achievement when she goes to uni, but she, like, maxes out her overdraft, like, in the first few weeks, and she's like, shit, I've got no money, so she has to get a job, so she has to work part-time while she's at uni, so you do get the sense of her being, you know, not as well funded and well looked after as other people she meets in London. Like, there's a bit where she's dating an architect and she's all of a sudden mixed in with these other classes, which I think a lot of people can relate to going to university, especially in a big city. Um, so there is like the financial hardship thing, especially with her mum being um, a single mother, and then the father, he's an alcoholic. I didn't get as much as him as I wanted, or even as much as the mother, but it does go back and describes how the mother and father meet, and that those bits I really liked, but you didn't quite get a sense of the mother and father as characters in themselves. Everything is very focused on Lucy's perspective, which can seem quite narcissistic at times, but I think because it is in short paragraphs for the most part, the book, it's never quite grating. Um, what else? But I did find the short vignettes um, a really powerful way to narrate a novel, actually, and to structure it. With parts where she was remembering like certain things from her childhood and just describing scenes like all the parties she goes to in London, going back home, and particularly with her being, you know, I guess the millennial generation, with things like the pirate shampoo from Savers, and there's bits where she's talking about just writing online. It's not like loads about being a millennial, but there's just flashes of it here and there. Um, and with the writing being lyrical, it did kind of feel at times like it was a new generation oozing through onto the page. Some people might think that's a bit much, but because the book kind of does focus on her and her mother's relationship, that interplay between her generation coming forward, it works. There were certain parts like where it seemed like with her and her mother, it was kind of her like saying like, "It's my time now." So that was, I find that a little bit simple, but all in all, I definitely recommend the book. So as I said, I did come away from the book feeling really, really jealous. Um, and that was because, like, even before she goes to uni, she's the party girl. So she's at school doing her A levels, and I think even when she's doing her GCSEs, she's like partying hard with all her friends. And I'm like, when did we get to do this? When I was a teenager, I mean, I guess we had parties every now and again, but it wasn't like they make out like they're partying like every day. And at uni, she makes out like she parties like at least several times a week. And for me, whenever I was at uni, well, I'm still on at uni, but when we did go out, it wouldn't be that often. It would be like, I don't know, for me, once every like few months. So I came away feeling really envious because I was like, how can you, like, why didn't I go to all these parties? And in it, the girl Lucy is also described as being like quite beautiful. So I don't know if that's any relation to the author. There's only a tiny picture of her in this book, but even in that, you can see. Well, you can't really see, but I mean, she looks quite pretty. So I don't know how much of it is personal experience, but because of the way it's told, it doesn't feel overly personal. So the narrator, I got on with. So if you would be interested in reading, you know, a novel about growing up, a novel about, you know, kind of from the millennial generation, and you'd be interested in reading a contemporary book, I would definitely recommend this. So, ta-da.
Case dismissed.